So let's journey deep within the jungle to explore a very turbulent and troubled film production that became an action film classic with Arnold Schwarzenegger and John McTiernan's Predator. When military specialist Major Dutch and his elite special forces team are recruited for a Central American rescue mission alongside CIA operative Dylan, they quickly find themselves deep within a foreboding jungle. Even worse is when they discover the skinned and slain bodies of a team of Green Berets, men Dutch knew, and wonders what they were doing out here. However, once their explosive and violent rescue mission is later revealed to be a CIA-sanctioned slaughter of insurgents, they quickly try to reach their extraction point, but something else out there is watching them. With Dylan bringing along the guerrilla fighter Anna, the team trudges through this wilderness as an unseen force begins to hunt them down, with weapons unlike any on Earth. Now as this expert team of soldiers attempt to escape this dangerous landscape, they must do battle with something they never could have imagined, and unleash the ultimate predator within, in order to survive. So the journey of the film Predator to the big screen in 1987 was a very long and arduous one, wrought with production difficulties and setbacks and problems of all different types of shapes and sizes, which started off very promisingly with a spec script purchased by producer Lawrence Gordon over screenwriters Jim and John Thomas, getting super producer Joel Silver involved with the film, who was behind many big blockbuster action hits of the 80s, including Commando, Lethal Weapon, and Die Hard, then tapping up-and-coming director John McTiernan, who had just done his first feature called Nomads with Pierce Brosnan, and, of course, getting the biggest action superstar of the 80s, Arnold Schwarzenegger, attached to the film, and something that he was very much interested in doing a film like this with a team of men working together collaboratively as like Wild Bunch or Magnificent Seven type of film, where you just have this sort of commando type of team and whatnot to work together towards a common goal. So he was very much on board with the whole idea of the film and all this type of stuff, and having so many great things with so much talent behind the screen and in front of it, all these things working together, having such great talents involved with the film in general. But shooting on location in Mexico is one of the big problems with the whole thing, because you're shooting in a real jungle, which creates a whole slew of various difficulties in trying to shoot stuff where there's so many places in the jungle. There's not even ground for people to set up shop or even work on or even take a rest anywhere. You've got pounding heat of over 100 degrees. Who knows how much humidity is floating around in the air. You got bugs flying all over the place, mosquitoes, all this type of stuff. It's a nasty environment to shoot a film in, and you've got explosions going on. You got all these people in the crew and everything, all these things going on. That's such a massive thing to do, even in a controlled environment. Difficult to do just in that type of way. You put it into this middle of this wildlife and everything, it becomes a whole different animal, a whole different wrangled beast to try to deal with. And it was not an easy thing for anyone on this film to really kind of get into the thick of things in this very oppressive type of jungle, where a lot of people got sick on the film, consuming the local food or the local water or whatnot. So it's like there were just so many problems just in the logistics of filming this on location in a real jungle. Became a definite difficulty for the whole film. And that's just the start of the problems with this film, with its ultimate titular character of the Predator originally ended up being such a mess of a design that it absolutely could not work in the environment they were shooting in, and completely shut down production for a very long period of time. Almost completely ruined this entire film and completely put it on the shelf, if not for certain people coming in and salvaging what they could do to make this film the absolute fantastic classic of action cinema that it absolutely is. And so many things go into that, mainly because you've got John McTiernan as the director here. Even though he'd only done one film prior to this, you can see so much of what he brings to the table in all his future action classics, such as Die Hard, The Hunt for Red October, Die Hard with a Vengeance, and so many other really good films that he's done. He is such a talented director, showing off here in Predator so gloriously what he can bring to the table with a very serious tone of a film that just captures such an essence of tension and suspense. I just love how he lays this film out, how the script lays this out, but how he sets the tone for this film so perfectly. Throughout this whole thing, there's a definite atmosphere to this film, mixed in with so much great charisma and such a great way of handling and introducing characters with such a quick and distinct way of doing so that you learn all these characters in Dutch's team through little pieces of dialogue, just the way they inhabit their characters, the distinct personalities, the traits, the characters, how they react and interact with one another, just immediately puts a distinct point on each one of them. You know exactly how each one of them is laid out, how they all handle themselves, carry themselves, how they just add to the team here. That I love the fact that you have a great team of men in this film that are shown to be such elite type of soldiers here, that these guys are serious soldiers with a great sense of wit and camaraderie and personality. These guys have been through everything together, through every part of the world they could possibly go to. They've been through every possible war zone. And I just love so much of how you get this bonding and this quality between all of them. They work as such a cohesive unit throughout this entire film. And just like, I just love how John McTiernan lays those characters out and has these characters so well cast. They get so much personality, so much charisma putting out with the chemistry between all the actors that inhabit these characters in such a great way. I just love how he just puts those beats right in the midst of everything else as the plot is quickly unfolding. All these little things are just moving the plot forward. There's never a point in this film where there's not something really kind of developing at some point in time. The pacing of the film is so exquisitely, nicely well done, and it's so greatly done with so many good characters weaved into the whole thing and compacted and streamlined. There's no fat in this film whatsoever. John McTiernan is a lean filmmaker here, just using all the tools in this screenplay and with the actors and all the talent that he has to really kind of cut through all of it and just get it right down to the bare bones and get it nice and lean and streamlined throughout the entire course of this whole film. And I like how this film really just sets the stage and kind of drops little hints of the Predator as it goes along, because you open up with the spaceship and everything, but it's not until after you get introduced to these characters and they're into the start of the thick of the plot and everything, and they're starting to lay the things with the skin bodies and a couple other things, that you get the little hints of the thermal vision in there just to lay the hints in there. There's something else lurking around in this jungle that is eavesdropping on them, watching them in this whole thing, just seeing these things unfold and just watching the progression of events here. And so it just lays these little hints in there, and just slowly, as the film goes along, slow burn, slow build, just giving you little hints here and there, show a little bit of the cloaking device type of stuff. It's not until much later in the film that you get even the little bit of a real look at this character or whatnot. I like it just builds that, just leaves you on the edge of things, just leaves you anticipating more, just wanting to see that reveal, just building up towards it a little bit at a time as the film goes along, because it starts out, again, as a sort of war commando type of film and whatnot. These guys just dropping in the jungle to do this type of thing, and you got a few little things going on, little machinations of CIA shadowy covert type of things going on in there. But it could just be that type of film where they just drop in this whole thing and they just try to escape from the jungle from some guerrilla fighters or whatnot. But you just throw in this entire swerve in the film that you do, like I said, leave those hints in there, build it up. Doesn't just come out of nowhere. You do have those little things building up through the whole film, and just get to that point where things just start getting into that thing. The conflict begins with the Predator and Dutch's team and everything, and just like it builds and builds. It just has such a great progression of that type of thing, that kind of escalation of the whole film, that it keeps keeping you on the edge of your seat. I just like how this film just has such almost a constant sense of suspense, constant sense of tension going on through the whole thing. It's just such an amazing type of thing how John McTiernan just keeps that going throughout the whole film. The momentum of this film is a fantastic thing, how it just builds all that and lays these things out and just keeps you going and just keeps you in the minds of the characters. You got such a good director with John McTiernan just knowing and just having this confident hand, a straightforward type of idea of how to work with the actors and deal with all the tension and the tone and all this type of stuff. I just like how he handles everything in this film. And leading off this great cast with Arnold Schwarzenegger as Major Dutch, I think is a fantastic thing because this has been probably my favorite Schwarzenegger film for a very long time, because in so many of Arnold's other action film roles, there's usually a bit of a looser tone, a little bit of an ability for him to kind of be a little bit more flexible and do a lot more humorous type of stuff. With Predator as Dutch, he's in a very tightly focused, seriously toned film, where certainly some a little bit more verbose type of personalities and a couple little quips here and there. But this is a film with a tone that requires Arnold to hold a little bit more gravitas and bring a little bit more dramatic acting chops to the surface of his character, and work opposite such a good actor such as Carl Weathers and really be challenged and forced to really kind of step up his game and really bring more to the table than he really had to before this. I really like that quality of what he has to do with Major Dutch, this very level-headed type of leader who's always very perceptive and calculating, intelligent, and holds a very strong conviction about things, because it was like, it's nice that you see the character of Dutch who has that sense of conviction and that very kind of calm, collected type of quality about him, that he also kind of has that little bit of suspicion going on, that he's willing to challenge Dylan left and right and look at him with a little bit of a crooked eye here and there. It adds something more that Arnold really has to put forth a little bit more effort to kind of grow a little bit, expand himself a little bit, learn from someone like Carl Weathers, who is a very, very experienced type of actor, and just kind of build that type of character throughout this whole film to be a very strong presence throughout the whole film, next to a lot of other very strong personalities. So it's like, it has a lot of challenge for Arnold to really kind of push himself in this film. So he's a very good, solid, concise leader, very definitive, decisive type of actions that the character makes. And again, I just like that he's very intelligent and perceptive, that he picks up on the habits of the predator and just the mentality, the psychology of what it is that's hunting them and everything. It picks up on all these little things as a seasoned soldier would. It's such a great thing how they write this character, how Arnold gets into the character, and how John McTiernan is able to pull those qualities out of Arnold, really focus him forward, and make a really good, solid character to lead this film forward on such a serious note. I like that about this film, and of course, the quips that he throws out are absolutely fantastic in this film. I just love them all. Everyone does. They quoted a million times, and they're still fantastic to hear today. But Arnold just does a very solid piece of work here, that it shows that a lot of good directors can get really good stuff out of Arnold, such as James Cameron, John McTiernan, and even like Paul Verhoeven. These guys who are really good directors, can work with the actors, really draw something out and find their strengths and deliver something really solid on screen. I think this character of Dutch really brings forth some nice qualities that Arnold doesn't get to flex as often as he did. And as I said, the counterweight to Arnold in this film is the awesome Carl Weathers, who adds in some really needed nuance to the character of Dylan, who has certainly a sense of duplicity about him, because he's a guy putting on this story for Dutch, knowing the kind of person that he is, what kind of soldiers they are. Like I said, they're not typically assassins. They don't go out and hit missions or whatnot. They're usually a rescue squad, so he knows he's got to sell him a story, sell him a cover story about this whole thing, and kind of keep things a little bit shady, kind of covered up here and there. And you always see these moments throughout the whole film where he's a little shifty-eyed, or he's not quite being, you can tell when he's being disingenuous about things, where he's kind of got kind of a flimsy cover story for why Jim Hopper, whatnot, all those Green Berets out of Fort Bragg end up in this jungle, whatnot, skinned alive, and all these little things that go on throughout the whole film until they realize the whole cover story that they're given is totally bogus, and they were sent in as sort of a assassin squad to kind of wipe out these guys before they went over the border and had this big invasion and whatnot. So you see all these things build up with this character, seeing this morally corrupted company man who thinks everyone's expendable and is fine to sacrifice people for the greater good of things. until you really get this character really deep into the thick of things, and he really just gets to this point in the film where he just starts to turn a corner and sees he's in this shit the same as everyone else, and really starts seeing the value of all these other guys, and really seeing how much they're sacrificing and how much they mean to one another, and just see the character of Dylan there just take that turn or whatnot when Mac goes off to hunt down the Predator and everything, and Dylan just decides, I'm going to throw in with this whole thing and back him up and try to fight on the right side of things for once, and really kind of show that arc of the character to take him from this kind of guy who starts off genuine, then seems very much corrupted and very much seems like the antagonist of the film in a certain way, but then takes that turn all the way back around, really see like a noble and honorable type of guy, a really solid straight-laced soldier that does come around and feel like he belongs in the company of all these other guys. It really is a really solid performance from Carl Weathers, who again really pushes the challenge of the weight and the conviction and all this type of stuff with Arnold, and thus lifts up and elevates so much of the other qualities of the film. You really have this dynamic going on between these two characters and everyone else in the film, to really have this central core conflict amongst everyone, to have the type of character that does create a little bit of turbulence here and there, dragging the character of Anna along, and just have this quality in the film that keeps a turbulence, a certain tension amongst the group in a certain way, but it just creates so many good things that Carl Weathers is so perfectly adept to really kind of bring that in the film. And just like everyone else, so much in this film, there's so much muscle in this film, so much ripped physiques, and so much good stuff to see. This is such the most macho movie that's probably ever been made, with so many rippling muscles and baby oil all over the place, and it's so much good stuff to just like, this is so much testosterone fueled action film with some fantastic characters, fantastic actors, just jacking it in right into this film. It's fantastic stuff to see all these guys work together. You got someone like Sonny Landham portraying this character of Billy, who has this kind of sixth sense out there in the jungle, be able to sense something is amiss or something like that, this tracker or whatnot, who just gets this sense that the predator's out there, something out there is kind of hunting them, watching them and everything. And when this guy, everyone in the film absolutely believes this guy is without any fear, no one scares this guy, nothing scares this guy. When he says he is scared and we're all gonna die, there's something out there and it ain't a man, you know you're a deep shit with everything else. But you get someone like fucking Jesse Ventura, this ex-Navy SEAL who went through the training on this film like it's a walk in the fucking park. Ex-Navy SEAL, ex-professional wrestler, all the verbose type of ego, charisma, larger-than-life type of thing to bring into this film is Blaine. That's fantastic stuff too. And having Bill Duke in this film is a great fucking actor. Coming off of Commando with Arnold as well really brings forth something really nice in this film. I like the character of Mac being a guy who ended up seeing this sort of quiet calm with the character, and ultimately a real heartfelt sense about him in a certain way, a real soulful quality about Mac that you just see in those moments after Blaine's been killed, and all these things they just kind of in these sort of self-absorbed moments of just reflection and just this quality of just grief and all this type of stuff that he's really going through, talking about Blaine and reflecting on him and all this type of stuff. His close friend there is a great performance he puts into the entire mix of this whole film, really just bringing out something, again, very distinct and very dimensional in a certain way to bring out good characters that just have something extra to offer to the audience. You get a character that has that dimension. It's not always just tough guy type of stuff. You can have these characters have that depth of emotion, really just have them bring forth something else onto the screen to really have you connect with them as dimensional characters on screen. You get so many good people, Richard Chaves, Shane Black, everyone in this film just brings forth such good qualities. Overall, they meld and mesh and have such great chemistry, work off each other, so cohesive. Going through all that training that they had to for the film really kind of bonded them together in a certain way, and it shows off so well on screen. It's a greatly put together cast and really nicely well written characters. It's such a great thing to behold on screen. From Jim and John Thomas, who wrote the screenplay, did kind of bring Shane Black over onto the cast with the idea of having him kind of tool around with the script on location, but even he kind of denies that anything that he might have done with the script really just didn't end up anywhere in the film. But the fact that he's actually the guy making the next Predator film to be released in 2018, writing and directing it with help of his friend Fred Decker in the writing department, that's something to look forward to. That someone who was involved with the original film coming back full circle to bring the Predator franchise back into prominence. Hopefully that turns out very well. And all that rigorous training really paid off in the fantastic action sequences of this film, because stunt coordinator and second unit director Craig Baxley so much wanted to have the actors right in the thick of all the explosions and the gunplay and all these shots and sequences going on throughout this entire film to really sell these characters, sell the actors as these thoroughly trained special forces type of guys, to really just have all that sell magnificently on screen. How all the action is blocked and choreographed and photographed so very well by cinematographer Dallas McAlpine, who later go on and shoot films such as Patriot Games and Clear and Present Danger. Really shows off some great stuff in this film. Really photographing this film absolutely fantastic. All the low angles that they use to sell so many different shots in so many different ways. They're able to angle through the jungle and all these different things that they can do, racking focus in so many places to really give that depth of field and all this type of stuff that it really just pushes forward in the film. Again, in this rough terrain, this uncontrolled environment, be able to get so many really good shots. Even if there was a little bit of a problem on the film with some of the cameras being loaded with the wrong film stock, which is why some shots in the film look very low grade, very grainy or whatnot, or the exposure is a little bit off here and there, mainly because they had some wrong film stock loaded in some of the B cameras to capture some scenes. So a little bit of a discontinuity there with the quality in some shots here and there in the film. But the quality of what he captures at the angles and the shots and the compositions comes off so magnificently well, and just gain that grit of the film, like really grainy type of thing. I really associate that so much with this film. Just seeing the grit of this film, just it feels so tangible, so much texture to what they capture on film and everything, sells a sense of realism with what's going on in the film. The tension of the film just feels so much more tangible, getting that sense of grit weaved into the fiber and the film stock of the movie just feels so organic in a certain way, just adds so much more to the sense of the film in general. I like so much of how the filming is shot, and just add in all those nice moments where they have these wide shots to really kind of show off the vastness of the jungle, this interesting way you have such a vast landscape that's so claustrophobic. It's such a unique way to add such a quality to the film in a certain way, to really just, again, that atmosphere the film has, how these characters are kind of spooked out by this jungle, that they just have this sense of something being very ominous about this jungle and everything. These guys have been through so much, been through so many war zones, all this type of stuff, seen so much combat, and this is the place that's really giving them the creeps or whatnot. It just adds so much of how the film is photographed and the tone that you get weaved in throughout the entire film. All this stuff really comes off so really well. And just having some phenomenal explosive action sequences executed with such precision and flair really makes this film stand out so much. In addition to all the very graphic and gory type of content that it does have, which very interesting to note that not a lot of people notice this, but Howard Berger and Robert Kurtzman of K&B Effects are credited as working on this film in the special makeup effects territory. So it got a lot of talent there, in addition to a lot of other really talented makeup effects artists who contributed their skills and just made all the gory stuff, the Blaine blown out, his cadaver, his blown out chest and everything, all the corpses that you have skinned and everything, they just add so much of the gritty realism of the film. Again, that grit, the tone the film is going for, really grounded sensibility. You feel that everything has a very strong, realistic feel to it, and the makeup effects of the film just reflect that in such great detail They really hit it off so well with the makeup effects and kind of the creature effects too, which is a bit of a different story altogether because, as a lot of people kind of know, the original design for the Predator himself was this very gangly looking weird type of creature that didn't end up working very well. Because, first off, Steve Johnson of Boss Films Creature Shop under Richard Edlund, who I guess were kind of tasked a little bit with working on the film, he was very much the one speaking out saying, this creature really is not going to work for the environment that you're shooting in. It is not going to look very well on screen for what you're going for. And when this thing ended up showing up on location and everything, after a lot of delays and whatnot, John McTiernan took a look at this thing and just like, whoa boy, this is not what we were looking for. And this is not going to work out very well. And he did 2 shots with this thing and kicked it right out the fucking door. And the more interesting, even deeper aspect is that Jean-Claude Van Damme was the guy originally in the suit for this gangly looking creature that didn't work out. And he wasn't very happy with the situation because he thought he was brought in as generally a stuntman to be able to do some martial arts stuff, to fight with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and do all this stuff. Didn't so much realize he was going to be inside this red chroma key type of suit that he's not going to be seen that much on screen. And even when he is going to be in the suit, it's not going to be something that's going to be have a lot of ability to move around and do a lot of stuff in. And he was miserable. He was seething in this terrible costume where he wasn't informed of exactly what he was going to be doing in this film, and it was just a big, gigantic fucking mess that shut down production for a long time. Steve Johnson of Boss Film, he was kicked out the door. He was fired from Boss Film. He was out of a job, and ultimately it ended up being saying Arnold Schwarzenegger suggesting Stan Winston Studios to the filmmakers, saying, I've worked with this guy on The Terminator. He did fantastic work. I'm friends with him. He worked with James Cameron. Fantastic work on Aliens. Get this guy involved. He's going to create something fantastic for you guys. And being on a long flight with James Cameron at the time, working on designs for the whole thing, and really kind of coming up with this sort of Rastafarian warrior-inspired type of design, James Cameron kind of whispered in his ear a little bit, saying, always wanted to see a character, kind of creature with mandibles and everything, so that was the final little piece of input that became this iconic creature for science fiction cinema, and just an absolute brilliant stroke of genius. This design is just absolutely, words don't do it justice, and how iconic this whole thing is, and how much this absolutely positively saved this film after so much of it had been shot, and just these effect sequences and these final climactic beats in the film need to be shot with this creature, getting Stan Winston involved, having his creative mind to try to design a new creature that really works so well, and getting this fantastic 7'2" Kevin Peter Hall into this character to create such a performance, a life, a personality, a character on screen that can move and kind of have this whole entire intelligence to him. All this stuff hit off so magnificently well. The design of the creature has so much organic life to it. I love how this thing just looks on film. You get all these close-ups on it to see so much texture and so much detail into the character. It feels so organic and alive on screen. It feels so much like it fits exactly into this world and suits the tone and the bombast and the threat that you're building up through all this entire film and everything. It hits off so perfectly that you cannot imagine anything else possibly replacing it. Having that terrible, unsightly type of creature they had originally would have tanked this film in such a terrible way. To see this thing pop up on screen after so much build-up. And though there might still be a few little cloaking shots of the original suit in the film, it's so nice that they got all the talent they need to, got everything they needed to make this character, this creature, live so much on screen. And the visual effects of the film hold up pretty nicely. The visual effects, they're doing a lot of inventive, innovative type of stuff, like the Predator vision itself, where they we're using an infrared thermal camera, but the fact that you're shooting in a jungle where it's like 100 degrees every single day, everything looks like a giant blob of nothing. So they had to optically composite regular film stock with the thermal film camera and post-production to really get this sense of the Predator vision, which has this really rough around the edges kind of analog video quality in a certain way, where things aren't as detailed as maybe like the later films do with a lot more advanced technology. But just having this in the film, just again, another distinct type of thing for the film, along with so much of the sound design, really just creates the sense of the Predator throughout the entire film. Just having the sound design, the sound of the Predator, all these different things with the heat vision, all this type of stuff, just creates the presence of this character before you really get him revealed in the flesh and everything. And just generally the visual effects, a lot of them are really solid. Some of them a little bit more rough around the edges when you got some of the cloaking device stuff, but a lot of the stuff really looks fantastic. And again, they would only improve with these sequels and everything, but they're breaking some new ground here, really pushing stuff forward with the special effects, the visual effects, all the type of stuff. Really comes together largely in a really nice package. There's only a few things that are a little bit less than great, but some of the stuff is just fantastic type of work, and you cannot fault any of the practical effects of this film at all, period. It all comes off magnificently well with the makeup, and the creature design stuff is absolutely knocked out of the park with all the talent they had to pull on this film. Comes off magnificently well, in addition to Alan Silvestri's fantastic score in this film, which done Back to the Future, and you can tell it's done by the same composer. He does, at this point in time, still has a signature sound that even if it does have a different distinctness to it, you can tell the difference between the Back to the Future score and the Predator score. It does have their own distinct qualities, but you can still tell it is the same composer, so it would take a while for Silvestri to kind of break a little bit more out of that. But the Predator score works so very well because, again, it fuels into the tight tension, the pace of this film. Just that military march just is so iconic for this franchise, and just get Silvestri just adding in so many good things that just keeps the momentum of the film going, feeds into the bombast of the film, and all these different things, just pumps up the action so much, and just fuels the build-up of everything. I just love what he does with this score. That it's not something that I find would be something you'd listen to easily outside the context of the film, but within the film, it works magnificently well. What he does in this film just brings the film its own identity musically. The theme of this film, as soon as you hear it, you know exactly what you're hearing. And it's such a great, distinct type of thing for this film and every film in this franchise moving forward. Always tapping Silvestri's work. Nice type of stuff. And just how John McTiernan brings all these elements together and culminates them in the climax of this film after Dutch's team has been wiped out one by one and get to the chopper and all this other stuff, and you finally get to this point in time where you got this whole thing where he figures out the heat signature element of the Predator's vision and begins to formulate this entire strategy to put the Predator into this entire trap and just have this ultimate showdown between Dutch and the Predator here. It's a magnificently spectacular piece of intelligent filmmaking because John McTiernan makes this entire sequence almost free of dialogue. Majority of this entire climax goes along with sound and vision, using all these elements so strongly to tell the story through the music, the sound effects, the visuals that you have, laying things out throughout this entire thing, and just having some spectacular visuals in this climax. A nice, beautiful wide shot you get when the sparks start flying and the fire starts erupting, and all these types of things. You just have great visuals in this entire climax in this very dark environment. So much what they do with this whole thing is just so absolutely perfect and inspired. Just using some nice dynamic and interesting camera angles to show off the size of the Predator, because up to this point we really haven't had a sense of scale next to the human characters of the film of the size of this dangerous predator out there. Once you see him up against Arnold, who, up to this point in everything you've ever seen him in, he's the hulking beast. He's the giant guy on screen. Now he's against this guy who's like almost half a foot taller than him or more. That makes him much more of a stronger threat, this massive physical intimidation that the Predator has. Just to see the scale of him against Arnold and see how much bigger he is just sells so much of what this climax is just weaving itself into. The great thing that they have this intelligent back and forth in this whole thing, strategy and cunning and cleverness between Dutch and the Predator, going back and forth, using their skills, using their resources, and just seeing how these two characters just go back and forth a little bit throughout the entire sequence, getting one up on one another and always using their tracking skills or their hunting or whatever it is to really just have that building momentum, and just see when you get to that point where they had that final bit of just hand-to-hand combat where the Predator takes the mask off and sees that Dutch is this ultimate type of warrior in the film, and just like seeing that, just the reveal of that is absolutely terrifying in the film. And just, again, fantastic line of, "You're one ugly motherfucker." All these things just culminate so perfectly in this climax of the film. Just everything builds on top of one another. You get these character traits of both Dutch and the Predator weaving themselves into the psychology of this combat and everything, just having it all come down to just hand-to-hand battle and everything. Is such an inspired type of way to just escalate it and just draw these two characters closer and closer together in this life-or-death situation. It's a magnificently well-crafted piece of action cinema here, just in this climax alone. And the fact that the entire film follows suit and builds towards that so absolutely expertly through John McTiernan's brilliant direction in this film shows how much of how great of an action film director he absolutely was and became, and continued to prove time and time again. This climax is absolutely fantastic, and just seeing again how they continue to outsmart and try to outthink one another all the way up to the very end of this climax and all this battle and everything. It's a fantastic thing, just having the intelligence of the characters show through and just have that being a further element of the tension and the suspense and all this type of stuff building all the way to the ultimate end of this film. It's a magnificent piece of work. I think this film, in every way possible, is such an inspired piece of action cinema. Again, just from the premise alone, it's such a nice concept that is handled with so much great care and so much respect as well, because it become something that could be very toned down into a very cheap type of B movie, which have been other versions of that out there through very low-end type of productions. But you get so much great talent on this film, so much great skill and attention to detail, and so many people just trudging forward through, again, terrible circumstances, working out in this mudslide of a freaking jungle in the Mexico. All this type of stuff just worked against them so much in this film, hitting so much adversity, just trying to shoot on location in this terrible environment, getting all this stuff with the terrible original design of the creature and everything, and have everything blow up and things just falling apart, and then rebuilding it and have it come together in such an amazing film, in my opinion anyway, that I think Predator, knowing everything that goes into the making of this film, all the things that they face, all the things that push back against them to try to make this film not be a good film, they push forward. I have so many determined people involved with this film to see it through, and I can't say enough about Predator. I've loved this film for over 20 years. It was one of the earliest films I ever got on widescreen VHS, and just like, it's one of those fantastic films that just continues to entertain year after year. And over 30 years later now, this is still a fantastic piece of cinema that absolutely defined John McTiernan's career. Definitely did a lot for Schwarzenegger's career after. A little bit of a stumbling block there with Raw Deal, as much as I like it. Didn't perform very strongly at the box office. This one put him nice, strongly back in the groove of everything. Even if there's some controversial type of stuff about how much the film actually did cost to market and produce, because, again, the stated budget was $18 million, but According to the 2004 special edition DVD, John McTiernan and a couple other people really kind of said that the film really cost more than it ultimately made at the box office with this $98 million box office take, and didn't start seeing a real kind of residuals and stuff like that to people involved with the film until like 15 years after it had been released. So not really sure exactly how all the Hollywood bookkeeping ends up getting sorted out and how legitimate all that stuff is. If the film really cost that much money, it seems very odd to have it not be disclosed ultimately, but Hollywood bookkeeping can be a very strange type of thing where a lot of people try to manipulate the books. They try not to pay people for their work on the film. It's a shady business, to say the least, but regardless of how much money it took in, it has been revered for many, many years now as one of Arnold's best films, one of John McTiernan's best films, and just a fantastic piece of action film. Legacy and everything, spawned a franchise, spawned a whole bunch of stuff between films and comic books, video games, and still seeing that this franchise still hopefully has a strong life in it, because I absolutely love the first film, and by the time Shane Black's The Predator hits theaters, I will hopefully have reviewed Predator 2 and Predators for you guys. So nice stretch of time to fit those in there, but guys, this is a fantastic film. I love so much what this film offers. Predator is a fantastic film for me, and hopefully for you guys. You'll put your comments below about what you enjoy about this film and what you generally think about it overall in the legacy of McTiernan and Schwarzenegger films. So, love to hear about that, guys. Thank you for watching so much. I'll be back in due time, but this is the final video I'll be shooting in this location, moving to a new place. So, be a little bit of time to get the next thing up off the ground, but this is a nice send-off. Been waiting to get this review done for a very long time. So guys, thanks for watching. Hit the thumbs up, comment, share likes around. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button to get more fantastic stuff off of this channel. So guys, thanks for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.